Shalom, I'm Mark Regev, and welcome to another episode of Israel Undiplomatic. And as per usual, I'm here with my wonderful co-host, Ruthie Blum. How are you today, Ruthie?
Hi, Mark. I'm pretty good considering the amazing operation that Israel undertook, two-day operation in Yemen. That was after the Houthis fired on Ben-Gurion Airport, and it fired a ballistic missile that landed right near the airport. It was, for some reason, it was unable to be intercepted. And this followed a few other missiles that were intercepted. And huge pieces of shrapnel also landed in the arrivals and departures lanes. It was very, very serious. It not only sent everybody into bomb shelters all over the country because there were sirens everywhere, but the airlines have begun to cancel all flights again after they had resumed flying to Israel. So it really was disruptive. So now, I would just like to point out one thing. The name of the operation in Yemen, and we'll discuss that in a minute and what the significance of it is called Operation Headstand. And for anyone who doesn't get the joke, it is because our airport is called Ben-Gurion Airport. And David Ben-Gurion, Israel's first prime minister, used to, for exercise or something, used to stand on his head. And in fact, on the Tel Aviv beach, there's a statue of him standing on his head. So because of the airport that was struck, we then demolished the Houthis' airport in Yemen, and we called that Operation Headstand.
So can I, first of all, that a missile got through and landed right inside, not inside the terminal, but right, I suppose I should say right outside Ben-Gurion Airport. And anyone who's seen the video saw that it was a sizable explosion. But what is the good news? Since the resumption of hostilities in Gaza, the Houthis have fired over 30 missiles at Israel. And this is the first one that's actually come into Israel and caused damage since the resumption of hostilities.
Yes.
Okay, before that there was one or two.
Right.
Most of them were shot down on their way. Most of them were destroyed before they entered Israeli airspace. And what happened this time, why the missile actually managed to land and explode inside Israel, that has to be investigated, because we have been very good up until now. Our air defenses, also with the help of the Americans, who are closer to Yemen than we are most of the time, this is an aberration that it happened. And I think it was right that Israel responded like we did in a 24-hour period, 2 serious strikes on Lebanon, crippling their...
No, on Yemen.
On Yemen, correct. Two crippling strikes, one on the port, one on the airport, which hurts them, hurts their ability to receive more weapons from the Iranians. And this is coming after a period, and we need to discuss this, of the Americans who've launched literally hundreds of strikes against the Houthis. And I think Israel sent an important message to the Houthi leadership and beyond, to their paymasters in Iran, that you fire a missile and you hit our airport or in the vicinity of our airport, we will hit back, and we will hit back hard. That's a crucial message.
Well, I have one problem with that message. The only problem I have is, had that ballistic missile not landed, had it been intercepted, we wouldn't have launched this operation. And that bothers me, because I think all missiles, whether they're from Gaza or from Lebanon, from any terrorist group, or from Iran, the trouble is to treat an intercepted missile as though nothing happened, I think is a big mistake. Because had it... any of these missiles could have caused mass casualties. That's one thing. But we
Can I just respond to that directly?
Yes.
The logic was, and we have responded in the past, but the logic was the Americans were doing massive strikes, repeated strikes, as I said, in the hundreds over Yemen at Houthi targets. For Israel to go there, it's a 2,000-kilometer flight. Yes, it's a serious military operation. And the idea of letting the Americans take the lead on this up until now was the right policy. until actually, obviously after they actually got a missile that hit in the vicinity of the airport, we had to hit back. But that was the logic. And there was coordination between Jerusalem and Washington. Allow the Americans who were there in the vicinity, hitting Houthi targets anyway, let them do the job. Now, apparently, that has changed, though.
Well, here's the thing. Yes, the United States requested that we not get involved, and that's fine because actually the Houthis, the reason that the U.S. and Britain were attacking the Houthis is because they were disrupting all the commerce in the Red Sea. After all, they're a bunch of pirates is really what they are. And if not for their patron in Iran, as you call them, they'd be nothing. They're primitive. It's true that they're able to still fire missiles and drones at us. But here's the thing that's more important, I think, and we've got to get to the heart of this. President Trump made an announcement yesterday, sitting with the new Canadian Prime Minister. He made an announcement. First of all, he announced that the Houthis have capitulated, that they said, okay, we won't attack ships in the Red Sea anymore. And then Trump said in response, America will stop attacking. He didn't mention Israel, what that meant for Israel. Furthermore, after President Trump said this, Oman, the Gulf state of Oman, confirmed it, said, yes, it's true, there's a deal between the Houthis and the United States. But the Houthis, a Houthi spokesman, was reportedly on social media, was reported to have said, no, we made no such agreement. Now, I don't know what the truth is there, but what we do know is this. Whether or not the United States continues to bomb Houthi targets, and whether or not the United States secures some kind of deal with Iran, which will be a sham and a scam because you can't make a deal with Iran, that's a good deal. Israel, the message to Iran was very important in our Houthi strike. And the reason it was very important was that it's true, even though we destroyed their airport and everything, Israel did not actually destroy their ability to fire more missiles on Israel. So that we didn't do that. But what we did is send a message to Iran. Okay, Iran is also 2,000 kilometers away. And it was to say, you know what? Don't think that we don't have the capability. We can fly that distance. We can refuel. We can carry bombs. So watch out because we're preparing to strike your nuclear facilities. And that's the main important message here. Even though it's important, yes, to attack you attack the terrorists who attack you, the way we had to go after Hamas, not just Iran. Still, it's very important that we convey this message.
I think that's 100% correct. And it's a matter of saying we can go these long distances, we can hit where we want to hit, we can destroy the targets we want to destroy. And that's a crucial message, not just to the Houthis, as you say correctly, to the Iranians as well. And also, we're getting more and more experience at these long-term combat missions. Obviously, there are exercises. Obviously, there's training. But when you do them in combat conditions, like we are now, right, every attack we do against the Houthis in Yemen is in many ways preparation, is in many ways an exercise, preparing the equipment, preparing the strategy, and so forth. How do you refuel for an attack on Iran? And I hope the Iranians understand that. I hope they understand that they are playing with fire and that we have a capability that is being increasingly tested, that is being increasingly energized, is being increasingly effective. And when we are ready, when we think it's the right time, we can use that against Iran. I want to say, you said before, the Houthis and the Americans were involved because of their disruption of shipping in the Suez Canal. I can tell you all sorts of stories, but the most difficult thing is it's disrupting global trade because most of the trade from Asia to Europe and back goes through the Suez Canal. And the Egyptians, who we've criticized previously on some of these broadcasts, but everyone has an interest in the world, has an interest in political stability in Egypt. And the fact that the Suez Canal, I read one report that the earnings of the Egyptian government from the tolls that people pay to go through the Suez Canal had fallen by more than a half, maybe close to 3/4, because all this international trade has been diverted around southern Africa. and it's untenable. And I think that's the reason the Americans went into the conflict. Now the question is, if there really is a ceasefire on this issue of the global shipping, to what extent do the Americans remain engaged? You said before it's not clear. A Houthi spokesman denied that there was understanding. The proof of the pudding is in the eating. We'll see in the next hours and the next days if the Houthis continue targeting shipping. If they do so, it's clear the Americans will be back in the game. If, however, this does hold and the Houthis continue just attacking Israel, so the onus will be on us to defend ourselves. The onus will be on us to attack Houthi targets. We cannot allow them to attack us with impunity. You are right when you said we have not, and maybe we don't have the ability to prevent them from shooting any rocket any time. But we do have the ability to hurt them hard, and we do have the ability to limit their ability to shoot rockets at us, and we do have the ability, as we said a moment ago, to prevent rockets that have been launched from actually landing and causing damage in Israel.
Yeah, not just that. It's the message. It's the message to all the enemies. And of course, we're operating also in Syria, in Lebanon, and in Gaza. We are about to launch another operation in Gaza, and Gideon's Chariots, something like that. Yeah, Gideon's Chariots, it's called. I don't know, all these names we come up with.
They come out of the IDF computer, I think.
Yes, although no, the one about the headstand, Ben-Gurion's headstand, that didn't come out of a computer. That was a tongue-in-cheek joke. Anyway, I think this is an appropriate moment for me because we're talking now about Israel-U.S. relations and the delicate balance that's going on. Well, I received an email. I have to read it because I'm not going to say, I'm going to protect the privacy, though he doesn't deserve it. I'm going to protect the privacy of someone, by the way, with a Latino name. And the reason that's interesting is he calls himself from the Young Republic, a representative of Young Republicans. So here is his email to me. Hey, why in the hell are we being Jewed into another war in the Middle East? I voted for Trump for mass deportations, not to be Jewed into a neocon war with Iran. What the hell is going on? This is maybe the only issue that the young left and young right agree on. Neither of us wants another Zionist war in the Middle East, and we are prepared to raise hell in opposition. No war with Iran. Let Israel fight its own wars. We are not going to die for Israel. Now, if we leave off the extremely blatant anti-Semitic nature of that email, and the reason I mentioned that he has a Latino name is it's interesting that he's says all he wants is mass deportations. He didn't say of whom we know, illegal aliens in America, but it just is interesting that he is not some kind of white Anglo-Saxon Protestant who's saying this. Now, if you leave out the disgusting anti-Semitism in that email, I think we need to discuss this and to reiterate two things. One is Israel does not expect anybody to die for its Zionist war. And making America great again is not about isolationism and, okay, let's not be the superpower in the world. Let's just shut ourselves off. Second of all, this business of neocon. I personally, he addressed this to me. I've never been a neocon. I'm a conservative. I'm a Republican. To the extent I have dual citizenship, I'm a Republican, and I never was a neocon. Neocon has also been used as a synonym for Jew, even though there are neoconservatives in the neoconservative movement, the Reagan Democrats, who were not Jews, nevertheless. Here, he didn't even need to use the euphemism because he outright said, we don't want to be Jewed into another war. Now, I think it's very important that we remind Americans and everybody else the following. The wars in the Middle East or peace in the Middle East is an American interest. And the only way you can achieve peace is through strength. And in the Trump administration, there is a division among the isolationists and the camp that believes in American strength. If you're not strong, the enemies take advantage of you. And this business of our fighting Iran, that is an American... First of all, let's not forget that the Iranian regime calls America the great Satan. Israel is only the small Satan. It's Iran. It's the Islamic Republic. It's the when the Ayatollahs took over. That was when they took captive Americans from at the U.S. Embassy in Tehran, not Israelis. So I just would like to repeat to all of those people who think we're Jewing you into something, don't be ridiculous. Aside from the fact that it's offensive kind of mail, it's a ridiculous assertion, and Iran has to be defeated. President Trump said so. I hope he is not hoodwinked by that regime. And it's also interesting. We don't know what's behind all those massive fires and explosions that are happening at the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps bases. We don't know who's behind that. Okay. It's possible Israel is, I doubt it, because we're busy elsewhere right now, and it could be America, and it could be internal Iranian. We don't know. But the things that are going on right now, to say they're Israel's fault is just a lie.
So you called it before, you said now a lie, before you called it a ridiculous assertion, but it's a ridiculous assertion with a lot of historical baggage, because it was said about the Iraq War that, the Jews forced George W. Bush to go and attack Iraq. It was said at the time of the Second World War. The Jews forced Roosevelt to make war against the Nazis, right? You can blame the Jews for poisoning the wells. You can blame the Jews for killing Christian children for the matzah. You can blame them for starting war. It's an anti-Semitic trope that goes back centuries. And this man obviously shares these sort of racist conspiracy theories. On the substance, if I understand President Trump, and I'm not sure I do, but if I try to understand President Trump, if I look at his relationships with his NATO allies, his major point is that if you want to be a partner of the United States, you've got to, bring stuff to the table. You can't rely on America just to bankroll your defense. You have to stand up, and you have to be willing to put budgets in and manpower in to be part of collective security. He says America for too long has been bankrolling the defense of other democracies. And he's been very critical of the Europeans. And some in Europe are saying, actually, he's right. We have to take our security more seriously. Yes. And you've seen governments in Europe, especially in the eastern part of Europe, closer to Russia, spending more on defense than ever before, because they understand that the Americans are now saying, you want us to take your defense seriously? You have to take your defense seriously, too. In other words, it has to be a two-way street. It can't be America alone providing the boots on the ground and bankrolling the allies. Allies have to step up to the plate and make their own contribution, both financially and in manpower. Can you say manpower today? It might be a sexist word.
Say it. I hate the word sexist.
But here Israel is actually totally in this model, and it's not new. We always have been. Israel has never asked for someone to fight our wars for us. Israel has always said it is our duty, it is our right, it is our honor to act to defend ourselves. That's why we have compulsory, unlike the United States, we have compulsory military service for men and women. I think we could be the only democracy that has compulsory military service for women. 3 years for men, just over 2 years for women. If women want to volunteer for combat duty, they can, and then they do the full 3 years like the men. And we have a large professional army. A large part of our budget goes to our defense, and the part of defense in GDP in Israel is very, very, very high. And so we are actually a model in many ways for many of the European countries who need to do more. And I think that's one of the reasons why Trump intrinsically seems to like Israel, because we are fitting his model of how other democracies, other American allies should behave. Now, I want to say one thing to this anti-Semite who wrote you that disgusting email, and that he just doesn't understand the reality. Iran's nuclear problem isn't an Israeli problem. It isn't a regional problem because, of course, the Arabs are very concerned too. It's a global problem. When North Korea proliferated, you've got a whole problem in Asia, and you've got a problem with North Korean nukes attacking even the American heartland, attacking the West Coast. If Iran gets nuclear weapons, it'll be much, much, much worse. To say that's only Israel's problem is to put your head in the sand and ignore reality. A nuclear powered Iran. Iran, with nuclear weapons and the means to deliver them, threatens global security. And to ignore that is to ignore reality.
Absolutely. Also, I just would like to point out one thing, after 9/11, I know these people who said Israel, the Jews forced President Bush to create the alliance for the war in Iraq. Okay. Let me tell you something. Israel always thought Iran should have been the target. So blaming Israel for the Iraq war is also unfair. And let's also not forget that the Iraq attacked Israel with rockets, and yet Israel was not. Again, Israel always thought, and we were asked, we were at the time, we said, stay out of it, don't retaliate into Iraq. And we obeyed that. We follow America's lead because we're great allies with America, but also we don't expect American boots on the ground in our wars. We do expect that America will not tie our hands the way the Biden administration did, the way the Obama administration did. And here you're right. Trump actually is very, very sympathetic to Israel. But his administration, there is a division inside his administration between the isolationists, between two groups who have a very different view of what Make America Great Again means. And there is where Israel is watching closely. Okay, because we have there's a lot of manpower, as you called it, manpower over there, some of whom are the people there are not, it's not so much that they're anti-Israel. That's not the issue. It's that they do not consider the need to go to war to prevent future wars as an imperative. And they think diplomacy is the only way to go. And that's why the author of this email said, it's the one thing we in the left have in common. And I was going to say, yeah, you're right. You sound a little bit like Rashida Tlaib or AOC when you say such things.
There's a famous speech by Churchill, I think to the Congress, before America was in the war, before Pearl Harbor. And he said to the United States, give us the tools and we'll finish the job. And basically that's Israel's position. We're not asking American boots on the ground to fight and die for our freedom. We're saying, give us the tools. And here the Trump administration has been giving us the tools, the equipment, the munitions, and so forth, so that we can do the job to protect ourselves. And I think that's the most important thing. And that's one of the reasons I said that's why Trump, I think, has this empathy for Israel, because he sees Israel's willing to stand up and pay its part and to put our young people in danger to defend ourselves. We're not asking American boys to do something that we're not asking ourselves to do. And I think it's a crucial message. You talk about two groups in the White House. One group, for want of a better word, is the more traditional internationalist, Reagan, John McCain. America has to be a world power. America has to be strong. America has to be engaged. And you're saying there's another group which seems to be more isolationist, pull back. It's also part of the American tradition, the idea that, we don't want foreign entanglements and so forth. We have to look after America and so forth. And you are right. We can point to different people in the administration and say, are they more in that group or they are more in that group? And the big question is where is President Trump on these issues? Because he said things that would indicate that he could have a foot in both camps. And ultimately, he will make the decisions. It's not just who's giving him advice, but who's making the decisions. Trump in his first term, let's be frank, was very good for Israel. Trump, we can talk about it, from recognizing Jerusalem and moving the U.S. embassy here, recognizing Israeli sovereignty over the Golan Heights, the Abraham Accords peace deals, which he was very helpful and very instrumental in getting us, the pulling out of the bad nuclear deal with Iran. If he's trying to make another one, the hope would be it wouldn't have the same faults that the first deal had, the Obama deal did. We'll have to wait and see. He took out the leader of the Revolutionary Guards, Qasem Soleimani. He said this man was involved in terrorism. He might have been a senior Iranian official. He was the commander of the Iranian State's Revolutionary Guards, their Waffen SS, so to speak, yes? He took him out. For all these reasons, Israel felt it had a friend in the White House, and I think we do have a friend in the White House. But once again, he's first and foremost an American patriot. And if he sees American interests as not being aligned totally with Israel, do you think we can expect problems?
Well, we can expect problems if he relies on the camp in his administration that seems to watch Tucker Carlson's vile broadcasts. Yes. However, it remains to be seen because Trump is kind of paradoxical, and we don't know yet. He says things as it's often pointed out that there are certain people, anti-Trump people in general, take him literally and not seriously, and pro-Trump people take him seriously and not literally. And I'm in the second category. So a lot of times he talks, but we'll have to see what he does. And we have to see what announcement. He said he's going to make some big announcement. We will see. I think any deal with Iran is a bad deal. Therefore, I'm really not interested in any deal he makes with Iran because of Iran, not because of Trump. Because they're liars, they're killers, they're radical Islamists, and and you can't trust them, any deal with them. Now, I just like to, we do need to touch on the amassing of Israeli reservists again we were talking about to resume an operation in Gaza. It's a different one. This time we're going to occupy any territory there militarily occupy any territory that we clear out of terrorists, which is not what we've been doing. And that's one of the reasons we've had to keep going back in and clearing them out again. We're going to put humanitarian aid in southern Gaza in a place near Egypt where the IDF can monitor private companies distributing only the necessary supplies to Gazans and check first that they're not Hamasniks and all that. We'll see what happens with that. I think it seems that we're waiting to find out what Trump is going to say or whether there's going to be another hostage deal and all that. I will say that I think we should be moving on this quickly. Because just as America thinks that its interests with Israel are not identical, that works in both directions. And if we wait too long, I know that people are saying that the hostages will be endangered by our resumption of heavy battles, but they're in danger anyway. And we cannot let Hamas win. And you mentioned Winston Churchill, and I'd just like to say, I'd like to quote something, and I wrote this in a column this week. He said, "When you're going through hell, keep going."
So I think you're right. Obviously, let's be clear. If there's a resumption of high-intensive military operations in Gaza, there's an increased danger for the hostages. And I can understand the pain their families feel, because there's a risk of Israeli ordnance inadvertently hitting a hostage. There's also, if Israeli soldiers get close to hostages, their captives could just murder them. But it's not like you're in a vacuum here. What is the danger to the hostages of doing nothing? What is the danger of the hostages of not having pressure on Hamas? What incentive does Hamas then have to release hostages? In other words, the whole idea is, okay, there are risks, but doing nothing might be much more riskier.
Incentivizes all Islamists, all radicals to kidnap innocent people.
Correct.
And we know that. We've done this. We did give the terrorists incentives. We have released terrorists for kidnap. We have to put a stop to this. I'm not saying we have to, I've never said, just forfeit the hostages. We care about human life. I'm not saying that. And I know that there's this business inside Israel where there's this fight over it. Well, the thing is, there are many considerations, and obviously the hostages' lives, that's why it's taken us so long.
Correct.
That's precisely why we have been too careful because of the hostages.
So
to say we don't care about them is really disgusting on the part of the anti-government protesters.
So I wanted to say that we've been calling up reserves in huge numbers. And I know in my own family, people are doing reserve duty. And in yours, I think there are two options here, right? Obviously, we're giving time. President Trump is coming to the Middle East. He says he's got a big announcement. If, because of all this pressure from Trump, from Israel, it's possibility to get a deal and we can get people alive out of Gaza hostages, the Hamas will get a timeout. But if nothing happens, we have to move. I'm convinced we have to move. You said it, and I believe it.
Not end the war. This business of calling for an end to the war. We cannot end this war. Enough already.
No. We can end the war when Hamas is no longer in power in Gaza. That's the goal.
We can achieve victory. In the war. Not
Hamas is no longer running the Gaza Strip, and that's ending the war. Because if Hamas stays in power, we're just a matter of time. We're back to square one, and nothing has been achieved. That's crucial. You said one last thing, and I see on the clock we're running out of time. I want to say, you said, should you see Trump literally or should you see him metaphorically?
Take him seriously or literally.
Okay, so I want the Iranians to take him very seriously. I want the Iranians to believe, and I hope it's true, that when he says there has to be a good deal or else, I want them to understand that they have no alternative but to dismantle their nuclear program. And if they nevertheless, don't succumb, I'm not convinced by the pressure, they will see a united American and Israel approach. It doesn't have to be boots on the ground. No one's talking about boots on the ground. But there has to be an operation that if they don't do it voluntarily, their nuclear program is dismantled. And that has to happen now.
Oh, absolutely. I just would like to end by saying no deal will achieve that. They will not dismantle their nuclear program. They will not. They might lie about it. They might sign some document. They will not do it. They have to be forced. They have to be attacked. And I think that if President Trump does it, he believes there is such a thing as a good deal. That is not true. It is not true with these people. You cannot achieve a good deal. It's not a question of Obama's deal or Trump's deal. Iran will not voluntarily dismantle its nuclear program, period. And therefore, there will be no choice. And I'm not expecting America to bomb them. I'm expecting America to enable Israel to do the job with the right bombs and the right support of some kind. And nobody said boots on the ground, American boots on the ground.
I would just say that let's say you're right and I'm wrong, that I don't think there's a chance for a serious deal, and you could well be right. The fact, though, that you have discussed in advance the possibility of a diplomatic deal and the Iranians don't go for a serious deal, that gives you justification to strike that you might not have had before. From a public point of view. And now you'll never convince that wonderful man who wrote you the anti-Semitic email.
Yeah.
But a lot of Americans will be convinced. That the president tried to get a deal. The Iranians would not agree to dismantle their program. Therefore, we have the justification, the moral authority, and to either allow Israel to do it by itself or for America and Israel to do it together. And I think that's also important in politics. Until next week, Ruthie, I'll see you then.
Looking forward to it, Mark.